All right, let's dive right into a really deep question, one that's about the very nature of your own mind. What is it that makes your experience of the world feel like one single, continuous thing? We're going to get into it. I mean, really think about it for a second. Right now, you're hearing my voice, you're seeing this slide, maybe you're feeling the chair you're sitting on, and you're probably having a string of your own thoughts. So why isn't all of that just a big, chaotic, confusing mess of separate things happening at once? Well, the answer comes down to one simple but incredibly powerful concept: unity. This is the absolute core feature of consciousness that grabs all that separate data and weaves it together into the seamless reality that you're living in right now. To really get our heads around this, we're going to use an analogy that just illustrates it perfectly. Let's think of your consciousness as a symphony. Now imagine an orchestra where every musician is just playing whatever they want, whenever they want. No conductor, no sheet music, just total chaos. That's kind of what your consciousness would be like without unity. You'd just be a collection of disconnected sensations. One philosopher even described it as a fragmented, multicolored, diverse self. Basically, just noise. But with unity, something incredible happens. All those separate instruments, your senses, your thoughts, your memories, your emotions, they all start playing together. They're in harmony, they're in rhythm, and they create one single, beautiful, meaningful piece of music. That is your conscious experience. So this idea of a unified experience, it's directly tied to something even more personal, something at the very center of your world, your sense of being an I. Okay, so if unity is what organizes the world for you, how does it also create the you who's doing all the experiencing? This is where we need to bring in one of history's most brilliant thinkers. The philosopher Immanuel Kant came up with a totally game-changing insight. He basically argued that you can't have a unified experience without also having a sense of self. The two, for him, were completely inseparable. And here is Kant's famous line on it: "The I think must be able to accompany all my representations." So what on earth does that mean? Well, he's basically saying that for any of your thoughts or perceptions to feel like they belong to you, there has to be a single I that they all belong to. That's the anchor. Without that I, all your experiences would just float away, disconnected from each other. Let's go right back to our symphony analogy, because this fits perfectly. The I think is the conductor. It's the central point that's organizing all the different notes and harmonies, allowing you to stand back and say, this is my symphony. It's what turns a random collection of experiences into your unique experience. Okay, so this isn't just some abstract philosophical idea. Unity has a very real, very practical job to do inside your brain every single second. It solves a huge puzzle. And that puzzle is called the binding problem. You see, your brain processes different parts of the world in totally different areas. Color is handled over here, motion over there, shape somewhere else. So the big question is, how does your brain bind all those separate signals back together so we see single, whole objects? This example makes it super clear. Your brain gets separate data streams for red, for motion, and for cylindrical shape. Unity is the process that combines all of them so you don't just perceive a list of qualities, you perceive one single thing, a moving red can of soup. And this binding process is so incredibly important. It gives us a stable world to live in. It lets us access all this combined information to guide our actions. And it seamlessly blends what we're sensing right now with our memories and everything we already know. Which brings us right to the cutting edge. The million-dollar question, right? How does the physical brain, this 3-pound lump of tissue, actually pull this off? How does it build that symphony of consciousness? Well, one of the leading ideas today is called information integration theory, or IIT, and its core idea is pretty radical. It suggests that consciousness isn't something the brain makes, it's what happens when information becomes deeply integrated. The theory even proposes a way to measure this integration, using a value called phi. The more integrated the information, the more conscious the system is. Now, on a more nuts and bolts neural level, scientists are exploring a few ways the brain might knit our experiences together. One popular idea is that huge groups of neurons fire in sync across the brain, literally binding information together in time. Other theories focus on specific brain waves or even on key brain structures like the thalamus acting as a central hub, directing traffic to create that coherent picture. And because this feeling of unity is so complete, so seamless, Some theories get even more speculative. They're looking to the incredibly weird, holistic world of quantum physics, at ideas like entanglement, where separate particles can act as a single unified system, for clues about how our minds feel so deeply interconnected. So, what's the big takeaway here? Unity isn't just a part of consciousness. You could argue it's what consciousness is. It is the fundamental magic trick that takes the raw, chaotic noise of data from our senses and composes it into the rich, meaningful, and deeply personal symphony of your experience. And that leaves us with one last, kind of mind-bending question to think about. If your consciousness is a symphony, and that sense of I is the conductor, then who or what is the composer? Thanks for tuning in.